Suttle Enterprises is pleased to welcome you to Problem-Solving Strategies for Parents, presented by national speaker and columnist Marilyn Suttle. Taped before a live audience, this program gives parents proven steps to solve problems with children. And now, Problem-Solving Strategies for Parents with Marilyn Suttle.
Problem solving. What kind of problems could a parent possibly have? They've got to get dressed in the morning, get their homework done, get in the car, don't miss the bus, brush your teeth. Problems. It's part of life. And children, they just aren't efficient. You know, we try to be organized, we try to be efficient, we try to get things done neatly and quickly. That's not part of parenting, is it? I think parenting, if anything, is where the word patience really takes on new meaning. Today's session, we're going to talk about strategies to reduce all of the stress and solve some of the typical problems that come up in parenting and communicating with our children. We're going to talk about a 6-step process to eliminate persistent problems. What are some persistent problems you have with your kids? Fighting, big one. Anything else? Doing, what's that? Whining, doing homework. Bedtime, getting ready for the bus. Cleaning their room. Oh, we've got a cleaning your room video. So today's session will be packed with some information that will help you to help your children in a way that isn't manipulative, that isn't going to ruin their self-esteem or ground them into the ground, and it preserves our dignity as well. Because as parents, we have to take care of ourselves. And we're actually modeling for them what it's like to be an adult. And so too often, what is the expression on your face when you're talking to your kids? And so we want to change that expression to one of more balanced, more calm, and more powerful parenting while being helpful at the same time. That's today's session. What happens when something unexpected happens? You get a flat tire on the road. You get upset. You have an automatic reaction. Your child backtalks. You're not the boss of me. I'm not going there. What are you talking about? You get over here right now, mister. We have automatic reactions, don't we? And we're going to start the session by talking about where our choice is, where our power is when events happen in our life, when trouble happens, when problems happen. Problems happen. You don't expect your child to wake up with the flu in the middle of the night, but it happened. Problems happen. You get a flat tire in the road. Problems happen. Your mother-in-law shows up without calling first. Things happen. It's not always within your control. It just happens. So sometimes you feel like life is out of control. I can't prevent myself from being stressed out. This just keeps happening to me. My kids keep giving me trouble over homework. They keep giving me trouble over going to grandma's to visit or whatever it is. They're giving me trouble. Life is giving me trouble. Life keeps happening to me. Problems are everywhere, and we get discouraged. What can we do? We can look at the piece of the equation that we have control over, and that's our response. Events happen. We respond either positively, negatively, hysterically, however it happens to be, and then we get an outcome. Sometimes the outcome is greatly influenced by our response. We may not have control over the problem, but we have control over what we do about it, how we handle the events in our life. You're on the express. Come with me. You're in the car with me. We're driving down 96, and it's raining, and there's a lot of traffic. We just hit the wrong time. So we're driving down the expressway, and in the rearview mirror, there's some hot rod kid, and they're zipping around, cutting people off, trying to change lanes and go around, and he ends up right behind you. So there you are. You're driving, dangerous driving conditions, and the person's tailing you. What do you do? What's your immediate reaction? Slam on the brakes. We get angry. Now, it depends. We have a choice here. This is where we have power in our choice. If you were to choose to just react, you might say, who does he think he is? He's not going to get away with this. There is no way he's going to be on my tail like this. I'm going to show him a thing or two. I know what I'll do. Now, if that's the way you react, what's the likely outcome? An accident, a problem, dangerous driving. That's the outcome that was influenced by your response. You didn't cause the guy to be behind you, but you chose a response. Now suppose instead you chose a conscious response. You said, oh, look at this guy behind me. I don't need any part of this. Geez, as soon as it's safe, I'm going to change lanes. You change lanes, the guy speeds up past you, goes off into the distance. Better outcome, worse outcome? Better. So we have control over the outcomes in our life through the way we make our responses, our conscious responses to the problems in our life. Now, our children are in our life, but sometimes we mistake children for problems. Children are not the problems in our life. Children sometimes create problems in our life, but if we see our child as the problem, we reinforce that within them. And often our automatic reaction is to attack the child's character. They say, can I pour the juice? You say, sure. They pour the juice, it spills. And you're already in an edgy mood, you snap. Automatic reaction. Can't you do anything right? I can't believe you spilled that juice. You know, last week you spilled the milk, too, and you knocked over that glass of water. Are you so clumsy all the time? What is wrong with you? This pops out of our mouth, and we think, ooh. Now, what did we just do? We did not attack the problem. We attacked the child's character. And so we have to consciously choose, do we attack the child or the problem? And be solution-orientated. So what could you say when your child drops the juice? What could be a conscious response? Accidents happen. Oops. What I like to think in terms of is what needs to be done? What needs to be done right now? Needs to be cleaned up. Oh, the juice spilled. We need paper towel, quick. You know, and if you're upset, be upset. We can be authentic with our kids. If you're upset, say, oh no, look at them. This juice is everywhere. Let's wipe it up. Quick, get paper towels. Because if you try to say, oh, sweetheart, the paper towels, go get it. Your eyes are going to be twitching. You're going to be nervous. It's not authentic. And they know it. It comes out one way or the other. So we want to be sure to attack the problem, not the child's character. The more we attack the child's character, the more they think, if mom and dad see me this way, well, who knows me better than my own parent? I must be that way. If they call me a klutz, I must be a klutz. And they lose incentive to do things more positively. And a lot of times if you have a child who is careless or forgetful, they learn real quick that mom and dad will take care of me. I don't have to remember. I don't have to reach out. I don't have to try. And they become very comfortable. It's like the sly fox syndrome. They just kind of sit back and let you take care of things. So we want to be conscious in the choices we make when dealing with problems. Have any of you ever watched the Olympics ice skaters? And you know, you watch them and they're so graceful. They're skating around the ice and you're watching and you're hoping they'll get the gold medal, and you pick your favorite one, you're watching, and then it happens, she falls. Oh, you feel it for her, don't you? There she is, fell. Now, skaters do something when they fall. Because they know it's possible that they might fall, they have a planned reaction. They choose ahead of time how they're going to respond to a situation that's most likely going to happen. Or not necessarily going to happen, but may happen. Suppose she had an automatic reaction. She said, oh no, I fell. I'm never going to get the gold medal now. I've ruined my chances. This is horrible. How do you suppose she's going to skate from that point on? Not good. She'll probably spiral out of control, get worse and worse, and things won't go too well. Well, skaters have a planned response for themselves. When a skater falls on the ice, she says to herself, this is a choice, what you're going to do. She chooses to say, get up and skate flawlessly. With that message, how will she skate? Flawlessly. Well, at least she'll have that image in her head. And where our thoughts go, energy flows and results show. So we want to focus our energy on things that will support us, pull us up, bring us into the solution end of things. Because in life there will always be problems. There are problems to deal with. They pop up. Change can be considered a problem, or it can be considered an opportunity. So as we go through life, be conscious of the way you're choosing to respond to the problems. And Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's possible that sometime in the future, just maybe, it just might happen, that you'll get angry with your children? You think so? It can happen. What kind of things make you angry? Having to ask them 3 times. Yeah.
Non-response.
Yep. You say,
So engrossed in what they're doing.
come and empty the dishwasher. Yeah, Mom. Come on. I will. Come on. Or my son, he likes to say, I understand. I know you understand it, but I want you to do it. They can be so clever. Show me. Yeah. So when we're feeling angry, and we do feel angry at times, they're eating with their fingers, they're running around the store, they're whining, they're doing something that makes you feel angry. When you're angry, you have an automatic thing you typically do. Do you know what your automatic thing is? If you don't know what your automatic thing is that you do when you're feeling angry, ask your family. They know exactly what you do. Some people, they threaten. You get over here right now. I mean it, mister. I'm leaving without you. If you aren't here, you're going to be grounded. You know what's going to happen to you? You go into threatening mode. Some of you go into lecture mode. Now, I've told you, honey, come on. I really need you to come, and I'll tell you, I'll explain it, because if you have good manners, then things will go well for you. People will like you, and blah, blah, blah. You keep going. And what happens? They tune you out. Because here is a phrase I'd like you to consider. The more you talk, the less they listen. The more you talk, the less they listen. The more words you fill the air with, the more they tune you out, and they're in another world because you just blend into the background. So we want to talk purposefully. We want to have skills for the time that we know we're going to be angry. Now, some people go into you mode when they're angry. Have you ever heard of you mode? Again, they point everything out to the child. Let's say your child asks to have a friend over. You say, okay, but keep the family room clean. Pick up after yourselves. So your child has a friend over, and they go off to play, and you go into the family room. There's pop cans everywhere. There's potato chips on the carpet. The TV was left on, and you feel angry. Now, when you feel angry like that, and you go into you mode, this is what it sounds like. Count the U's. You get over here right now. Do you know what you did? You left pop cans here. Do you know how many times I've told you, you have to clean this up? Now you get in here now and you turn off the TV, you clean up these potato chips, and you do not have a friend over here for a month. How cooperative is your child going to feel when you respond this way? What happens when you're attacked is you have to defend yourself. You have to justify why you've done things the way you've done them. Or the other reaction is you feel defeated, hopeless, awful. So what do we want our children to do when we ask them to clean up? We want them to clean up. So we want to talk to them in a way that will engage cooperation. In order to do that, we have to get away from the you and come back to the I. They are much more likely to hear us if we talk in terms of I. I'm upset. The family room was left a mess. I expect everything to be picked up when friends come over and you entertain. I need the pop cans to be put in the garage, the potato chips to be cleaned up, and the television to be left off. And I need you to find a way to make amends for this to me so that I can feel good about this again. Because until that happens, I'm not likely to have you let friends over again. See, if you talk in terms of I, they're going to hear you. They're not going to be so defensive. And the less you can say, if you can replace a big long paragraph with just a sentence, all the better. They're more likely to pick it up. So that I-you ratio, switch over. If you catch yourself you-ing, you know that you're turning them off. You're tuning them out. They're not going to cooperate. Some other things we do when we're angry that we can do is to replace the attacking with when, then. So the child wants to go out and play with his friends, but he has chores to do. And what do we typically say? You're not going anywhere, mister, not till these chores are done. And they're mad, and then they're resentful. And then they do it, but they do it slowly. beep. Anyone have the slow kid? Yeah, yep. That's their way of getting back at you. So replace the you, in that case, with when. They say, can I go out and play? Sure. When the family room is clean, when your chores are done, when your homework is done, whatever your thing is, when the family room is cleaned up, you're welcome to go out and play with your friends. It's so much more engaging. You're not saying, no way, look, you haven't done your homework. You're saying, sure, as soon as your homework is done, feel free to go out and play. What a whole different way of expressing yourself. And these things don't necessarily come to us. We have to plan ahead, almost like a script in our head that we can read. And the best way for me is to acknowledge my own feelings. I literally say to myself, ooh, I'm feeling angry. I feel like lecturing, but I won't fall in that trap. Or I feel like threatening, but I won't fall in that trap. I feel like attacking this child, but I won't fall in that trap. What will I do? And that's where you have to think ahead of time, when the problem isn't there. What is something you can do? You can talk the I instead of the you. A really positive problem-solving technique is to use choice. How many of you give your children lots of choices? Choice is a really engaging parenting skill. They have to do their homework. You can let them choose 2 particular times that are okay for you. You could say, would you like to do your homework before dinner or after dinner? And now, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg when we're talking homework. We'll get into more details with the problem-solving method on homework. But giving them a couple of choices allows them to have some power over their life. Kids don't have so much power. And they don't like that we have power, especially as they get older. They resent that we can tell them what time to be home and what they need to do. They don't like that. So if we can set firm limits but give them choices within those limits, it's easier for them to do what they have to do. One time I was over a friend of mine's house, and her daughter had sticky fingers. She'd just eaten a peanut butter sandwich. And her mom said, go wash your hands. And she said, no, I don't want to. And she started to run. And all these sticky fingers and her furniture, she was a panic. And I went over to her and I said, hey, Megan. I went right down to her eye level. And I said, would you rather wash your hands with warm water or cold water? She looked at me for a moment. She said, cold water. And she ran in the bathroom to wash her hands. Now, I got it right that time, but there were many times when I was the one screaming, would you get over here? Because we're not always conscious. We're not always prepared when those things happen. The more we can plan ahead for our emotions, though, the more likely we'll have control. Now, we don't stop at anger, though. It's incredible how the people we love in our lives, these children we give our lives for, can bring out the most incredible rage that we could ever even imagine. We see red. Now, do you make good decisions when you're feeling rage? No. If you know you don't make good decisions when you're feeling rage, then you want to plan now. You want to plan ahead of time. How do I want to handle myself? What trigger do I want to give myself to put me in the mode to do something helpful? Some typical things that happen when we're in a rage is that we attack the character, we attack the child, we literally hurt the child, we scare ourselves. We become somebody we don't respect when we have an automatic reaction instead of a conscious response. What are some things you do? What triggers do you give yourself for the times that you feel rage that work, that protect yourself and protect your children? Does anybody have one?
Well, I do one thing, just when I'm stressed the max, I'll go, right now, Mommy's in a bad mood. I'm sorry if I'm crabby to you. I can't help it. It's been a bad day. I let them know that I'm in a...
So you let them know you tune them into your feelings.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Right now is not a good time for me. I'm really upset. You could say something like, my patience is the size of a pea right now. Whatever is age appropriate. But yes, tune them in to how you're feeling. I'm feeling so angry. I feel like hitting, but I won't. Run! Whatever it is you're going to tell them. What other things do you do when you're feeling rage that work, that help? Or that you need a timeout. I need a timeout right now. It's not safe for me to stay here right now. And you take your timeout. Leaving the situation is a really good idea when we're feeling out of control. Leave. Move yourself out. The problem is huge right now. All you can see is this big problem is crushing you. It's not so bad if you can take yourself out of the situation, calm down. Sometimes you can't leave, though. Sometimes you're in the car with them when this happens. Sometimes it just takes you by surprise. Have you ever heard of the idea of counting to 10? Breathing. Yeah, you count to 10, literally. Maybe to 20, maybe to 100. But you sit there, you breathe, you count, or you leave the room. Now, one time my kids put me in such a rage. I left them alone, and we just moved into a new house, and everything was clean, and I was so happy. And I left them alone for 15 minutes. They were about 7 and 10 at the time. I left them alone. I come back into the room, and they had decided to get my flour. They went in the pantry, got the sugar, got the flour, and they were having kind of a fun fight with this flour. And there was flour on my nice new floor, on my countertops, on their heads, faces, hands, on every surface in my kitchen, there was flour. And I felt rage. I was so upset. And I give myself a trigger whenever I feel rage. It really has helped me so many times. I say to myself, Marilyn, shut up. Shut up, shut up. Don't say anything, because anything you say is going to do damage. So for me, it's a really positive trigger that stops me from doing something that will end up being a problem. And I remember I was standing there, I was breathing. And I'm looking like Darth Vader. And the kids look up at me. They look at each other. They get this scared look on their face. They start cleaning. One of them, I'm still just standing there. He says, Mom, are you all right? Then I went into I mode. I need help. I expect this kitchen to be cleaned up. And blah, blah, blah. You know, we go into a more helpful. You still can yell. If you're going to yell, if you are a yeller. How many of you are yellers? Yes. It's hard not to yell if you are a yeller. So why stop yourself? But if you're going to yell, yell something worth hearing. Yell information that can help the child. Yell what needs to be done. If your child left the milk out and you walk into the room and it's sitting there and you feel like yelling, what's wrong with you? Don't you know that costs money? And you want to attack the character, yell about what needs to be done. Milk belongs in the refrigerator. Let them know. Now, sometimes, one mom, she told me her kids were being so good. She was so proud of them. It was a rainy day, and they were just playing quietly in their bedroom. And she thought, a little too quietly. So she went into the bedroom. They were painting with finger paints on the wall. She felt rage. And so all she could think of is she's thinking, I got it. It's sort of like you're a pop can. And all of a sudden you get all shaken up. And it's got to blow. It's got to come out. There's no way around it. It's going to come out. So she was going to yell something that didn't do damage. She said, paint belongs on paper. It belongs on paper. And so this is more helpful. And then if we can control the yelling, if we can take ourselves out of the room and calm down so that we don't have to always be yelling. It's not always the choice we want. If we're in a situation where we're going to yell what needs to be done, yell something useful to know. But don't yell about the character of the child. Don't tell them. Because whatever words we use, especially when we amplify them, they imprint on a child's mind. A child will bring those words back and play them over and over again in their memories. And sometimes those words affect you well into your later life. And so we want to be very conscious of the words we use. We definitely have to have an order in our home. We need to set rules and boundaries. But we can do it in a way that doesn't do damage. So now we've got conscious responses that you plan ahead. You may even want to make a note in the back of your pages there to write down what are you going to do the next time you feel rage. What is your message you're going to give yourself? What parenting tool works well for you that brings cooperation? Will you give yourself the message? I'm feeling angry. I'm going to give them a choice. I'm feeling rage. I'm going to leave the room. What will your things be? By actively sitting down and writing out for yourself what those things will be, you're much more likely to have a positive outcome. And the child will be more cooperative and learn and be part of the family a little more. Now let's take a look at a father and his son with a typical perpetual problem, one that keeps on happening, and you're going to hear in his voice this father's distress. Let's take a look.
Matt, this room is a pigsty. I want you to clean it up right now.
But I like the way my room looks. I know where everything is. If you don't like the way my room looks, just shut the door.
This room is in my house, and as long as it's in my house, you're going to follow my rules. Now get cleaning.
I'm tired. I'll clean it later.
You'll clean it now, and no television for a week with that attitude.
Not that again. That's not fair. I'm not doing it.
What's not fair is you making me yell at you every time you have to clean your room.
I don't even know where to put all this.
I don't want to hear another word. I've tried everything with you. I've tried yelling till I'm blue in the face. I've tried punishing you. I've tried reasoning with you. I've had it. Now clean up this room now and do it right. Not like a shoddy job you did last time.
Hey, I'm cleaning.
Do you think I trust you to keep cleaning? I'm going to stay right here to make sure you do it right.
Look at that teen look. If you don't have a teen now, you will have. So Dad was frustrated. He just wants the kid to clean his room. How many of you relate to this example? When you have a perpetual problem, one that doesn't seem to go away, no matter what you do, you try to be reasonable. You try to set firm limits. You give choices. You use I messages instead of you words. The room's still messy. And then you're like, I yell, I punish, it doesn't seem to matter. What do? We want to take the situation into a shift. We want to start shifting into having the child come up with the solutions. We want to engage the child in having a vested interest in making things work in our home. So if you take a look at your problem-solving page, there's a 6-step process. This process is non-manipulative. It is respect-based. Respect for yourself, respect for your child. You do not use a problem-solving process on a situation where you are bound and determined to have your way. If your child is going to, if you decide your child is going to do homework at 5:30 every day, no matter what, and that's it, and that's your decision, that's not a problem-solving method. Because if you go into manipulate, it destroys the whole concept, the goodwill, and how it works. But if you can have a leap of faith that your child can be part of the solution, maybe they never have been yet, but it's possible. They can become solution-orientated. This is the process to use. I'll read the steps with you now, and then we'll see how Dad incorporates the skills. Step 1, you're going to talk about the child's feelings and point of view. Step 2, talk about your own point of view. Step 3, invite the child to brainstorm with you to come up with solutions to the problem. Step 4, write down all suggestions without judgment, without evaluation. That's a tough one. Step 5, decide which ideas you can all agree with. And step 6, shake hands and plan a follow-up date. Now let's see what that looks like with a father and son.
Hey, Matt. I got something I need to talk to you about. Would now be a good time for you?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, it's about cleaning up your room.
Oh, no, not that again.
Yeah, that again. Only this time, I want to look at it from your point of view.
What?
Well, let me see if I got this right. You come home from a hard day of school, and probably the last thing you want to do is clean up your room.
Yeah, I'm tired after school.
And there's so much to do that probably when you do get started, you're not even sure where to begin.
Yeah, and the last time I cleaned up my room, you got mad at me.
I did?
Yeah, because I shoved all my stuff under my bed and in my closet. I don't know where to put all that stuff.
Well, let me see if I got this right then. You come home from school and you're really tired, you don't want to clean up your room. And then when you do start, you're not really sure where to put everything.
Yeah.
Well, do you know how it feels from my point of view?
Yeah, you're always mad because my room's such a pigsty.
Well, the big problem I got is with the food that's laying out. It really starts to stink after a while, and it draws bugs, and we really don't want bugs in the house.
I know.
Well, what do you say the two of us put our heads together and come up with some ideas that we can both be comfortable with, and write them down, and then see which ones we like and which ones we don't like? Would you like to start?
Okay, put down hire a maid and have her cook.
Hire a maid.
He writes it down.
Buy a bigger house with bigger closets.
New house. Bigger closets. You know, speaking of bigger closets, you really don't have a lot of room around here. What do you say we look through the newspaper and find a secondhand bookcase to buy?
No, I don't want someone's old bookcase.
Now, we're just writing down the ideas. We'll talk about it later.
Why don't you just shut my door so you don't have to see the mess?
Shut the door.
Hey, you're not going to make me organize all this stuff again, are you?
Well, you do have a lot of stuff around here that you don't use anymore. What do you say we get 2 boxes? One for stuff to give away, and one for stuff to store.
And a box for my dirty clothes.
Like a hamper?
Yeah, I hate having to carry them into the bathroom to put them in that one all the time.
Hamper for Metro. Now the food. I'm going to write down no food in the bedroom.
No, write down no food left overnight.
Overnight. Well, we got quite a list here. Let's review our list. Hire a maid, buy a new house.
You better cross that one off.
2, buy a secondhand bookcase.
Well, that could work, but I get to paint.
How about 2 boxes, one for stuff to keep, and one for stuff to give away?
Yeah, that's good.
A hamper. Where would you put it?
Put it next to the dresser.
Oh, okay, that could work. There's room there. No food left in the room.
Oh, no, I always eat my snack in here.
Well, I guess the next suggestion could work. No food left in the room overnight.
It'll work. I'll make sure I clean it up before I go to bed.
Okay, and then we have our last one, shut the door. Well, I guess I could shut the door when it's messy sometimes if I knew there was no stinky food in here.
Good.
Well, let's review what we've decided upon. We'll get a secondhand bookcase. You get to paint it. We'll get 2 boxes, one for stuff to keep, one for stuff to give away. We'll get a hamper and stick it over there by the dresser. No food left in the room overnight. And I'll shut the door sometimes when it's messy. That sound good?
Yeah.
Well, then what do you say we start thinking about cleaning up? I'll give you a hand right after lunch.
Sure.
You got yourselves a deal?
Yeah.
All right.
Dad didn't yell at me. He really listened to my ideas. I'm good at problem solving.
Wow. He actually agreed to do something about his room. And he seems to feel good about it, too. This took a lot of time, but not as much time as I usually spend yelling at him. It's nice to have another way to handle problems.
Now, Dad there, he said, this takes a lot of time. And the fact is, we're busy people, aren't we? We don't have time to do this for everything. As a matter of fact, it loses its impact if you try to do this with everything. Save this process for the perpetual problems. For they won't do their homework. They're always late for school. Whatever is consistently a problem. Those are the times you take to problem solve. How did this child feel at the end of that interaction? He felt good about himself. After the first time, after the first interaction, how did he feel? He was mad at Dad. He was frustrated. He had no incentive whatsoever to clean his room. The second time now, he made decisions. He spent his time trying to make that happen. This is a great candidate for homework issues. And I use this with my son with homework issues because he had a real hard time disciplining himself. I wanted him to do homework right after school. He wanted to go out and play and get the wiggles out. So by sitting down together, we were able to solve part of the problem. We decided right after dinner would be the most appropriate time. He committed to it. He decided where he would do his homework. And he also decided he wanted music, which I didn't like the idea of music while he played. But then my husband is a computer programmer, and he listens to music when he works, so I figured maybe, it'll work. We'll try it. So we'll try it for 1 week, see how it goes. But the thing we couldn't figure out is how to get him to study those spelling words without getting frustrated with me. I don't need any more. He'd be frustrated with me, I'd get frustrated with him. And so I had a problem-solving session with his teacher. I stated the problem. My son just gets really annoyed, he gets really frustrated, he has a hard time learning these spelling words. By sitting down together and brainstorming, she came up with something that really ended up solving our problem. She said, well, your son is a kinesthetic learner. He's a hands-on person. So he needs to be physically touching the words somehow and getting actively involved. And thought, oh, how do you touch spelling words? So what we did is I came to him and I said, time for your spelling words. And he's like, oh, not again. And I said, see this salt? He said, yeah. I poured the salt into a cookie sheet. What you doing, Mom? Write your name with your finger in that salt. A-L-E-X. Oh, that's cool. Well, we would practice spelling words with the salt. Sometimes shaving cream, sometimes sugar. It was a creative solution that I would have never come up with it, neither would my son, but by engaging problem solving with the teacher, we came up with a really usable alternative. There was a man in class with me that I taught this workshop with a man who had a really frustrating situation, a real problem with getting his son to brush his teeth. Anybody have trouble with that? Yeah, getting him to brush his teeth? He literally would have to pick his son up, hold his head, and brush his teeth for him every night. It was so annoying. And he wasn't liking himself the way he responded. He didn't like his son's behavior, and he needed another way. So he thought, well, the kid's a little young, but I'll try it. He was 4 years old, I think. And this, I'll tell you what, I've talked with parents who've used this approach from as young as 2 1/2 all the way through into the 20s. So he said to his son, step 1, talk about the child's feelings and concerns. You want to take a long time with this step. Did you notice on the tape how long they talked about it? A long time with this step. You want to make sure that the child feels understood. Because if he doesn't think you understand his point of view, forget it. He's going to tune out. So they talked about how he didn't like brushing his teeth and why he didn't like it. And it was all about the child's point of view. And Dad just didn't argue or complain. He just listened. Then they went to step 2. Talk about your own feelings. Now, we have to be careful here. Because what happens when we start talking about our feelings? I cannot stand having to brush your teeth for you. Don't you know that you'll get cavities and you have to brush your teeth every night and it's really important. You have to understand and blah, 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 blah. Have you ever watched the Peanuts cartoons with the teacher in the background? Wah, wah, wah. That's what they tune out. They don't hear us. So when we go into step 2, you may want to even plan what you're going to say before you even come to the meeting. You want to be brief. Say it in as few words as possible. It's important for you, the health of your teeth, that you brush every night. Done. And then he moved to step 3. They brainstormed some ideas. And his son, this is where, how this boy on the tape, he's like, buy a new house, get a maid, like we can do that, But you write it down. You don't evaluate. Just write everything down. And this man and his son wrote down, don't have to brush my teeth anymore. You brush your teeth first, then I'll brush mine. And the dad, wanted to put some suggestions in there too. Now here's something to note. You try to get your child to be the one to come up with the suggestions, as many as possible, especially the first few. When they don't, though, you can intercede some of your ideas, but don't give your best idea first. Human nature tends to dismiss the first thing you hear. So if you have a couple ideas, make sure you like all the ideas you give, but make sure that your better ideas are later. So one of his later ideas the dad put down was, when you brush your teeth, you brush up and down on every single tooth. Or we set a timer. I think that was another one. Set a timer that you brush that long. So you engage this process, you write it down. Now, you don't always have to go through every step. Sometimes once you just define the problem and how everyone feels, the solution pops up right away. But it's a very respectful approach. Young kids are like, wow, you're writing my words down? What does that say? They get really proud of themselves. They're important. Then you decide which ideas you like, which you don't, and what you plan to follow through on. This dad with his son, they decided that the boy really liked the idea that Dad brushes his teeth first, and then I'll brush mine. And he also reluctantly agreed about the up and down, brushing the teeth. So they decided, and then step 6, shake hands on your agreement and plan a follow-up. Now, this might seem trivial. Shake hands. What's the big deal? Shake hands. I'm not even going to think about that. There's something profoundly respectful about shaking hands on an agreement. And more than that, there's a human connection that has even been studied. Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul author, talks about a study that was done through a university. They took college students and they went out to a parking lot. They put a couple of dollars worth of change into one of those payphone coin returns. Have you ever seen those? They put the change in there, and then they stepped back and they'd watch as people would come up to make phone calls. And what do you do when you go up to a payphone? You kind of check that coin return. You take the money, and maybe you use it, you put it in your pocket. So they would make their phone call, they'd go back to the car, and this is where the university student would come up, and they'd say, "Excuse me, but did you happen to see any change in the coin return?" How many people do you suppose said yes? Not many. 97% said no, and they left. 97%. They did the same experiment a second time. This time, the only difference was, as the person made their call, found the change, walking back to their car, this time the person came up to them and one gentle touch on the arm. They'd say, "Excuse me, ma'am, did you happen to see any change in the coin return?" 95% of the people said yes and even offered the money back. It's some kind of connection between you and the other person. So shake hands with each other on that agreement. There was the most remarkable, I've heard so many parents tell me they've tried this with such great success. If you have success, please, you've got my email address, let me know about it.
Do you have to shake hands or could you hug?
You could always hug. Yeah.
I didn't know if it was the formal.
Well, it is formal, but you know your child, you could shake hands and hug. Why not? Do them both. But I think a hug is also respectful and loving.
That's not something we would do. I mean, shaking hands.
Shaking hands isn't something, and somehow that makes it more official because you're not used to shaking hands, that this is something different. This is something more meaningful. This is, or not necessarily meaningful, but more serious or more important. She's writing my words down. She's listening to my point of view. Some kids say, "I didn't know she could listen." It's just a shock to be heard. And it's, again, so respectful for both of you. Now, the most incredible experience, though, that a man shared with me, he did this process with his teenage son. How many of you have teenagers? Raise your hand. A lot of you do. What do you notice as teenagers start growing? Do you see them as often as you used to? No. When you have a teenager, all of a sudden they have work, they have sports, they've got school, they might have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, they have their own friends, their social life. They're not home. You barely see them. And one of the men in my workshop, he would get so annoyed because his son was never there for dinner. And so he had an automatic reaction. Whenever his son would walk in the door late, "Where were you? You were never at home for dinner. I expect you to be here. What's wrong with you? Why can't you spend more time with your family?" And it would just distance them even further. He said, "I'm going to try this." Went home that week. And he thought for step 2, because he tends to be a hothead. It's just his nature is to get into it. So he thought about step 2, talking about his own feelings. He thought about it for a long time because something you may want to even note on your paper. When you talk about your feelings, look for your highest intent. What is the highest intent? What is your real, down-to-earth reason for wanting what you want? And so he thought about it a long time. Finally, he said he was ready for the meeting. He said to his son, "Can we meet?" Now, also, never go into a problem-solving method unless you're calm. If you're nervous, if you're right in the middle of a problem, and then you think you're going to, "Okay, this is a terrible problem. We're going to sit down, and we're going to solve this right now," is not going to be solved because we don't make good decisions when we're upset. We need to wait a while, calm down. When we're calm, when they're calm, that's the time for the process. So he engaged his son, and he said to his son, "Son, I just realized how busy your life is. You've got school, you've got a job, you're on the sports team." And his son looks at him, and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I can see how it could be hard for you to be here for dinner every night." And now his son just really is riveted. He's looking at him. And he said, They talked a long time about his son's perspective, what it was like for him to be so busy and what it was like for him to always be yelled at about it. Then Dad went to step 2. He talked about his feelings, and he said very briefly something his son had never heard before. He said, "Son, I only have you a couple more years before you're off on your own, and I want to spend time with you. I want to see your face across the table from me because I like being with you." Well, his son just softened his expression. He looked at his dad, and it was like he was melting. I mean, there was an actual physical reaction to hearing those words from his father. He hadn't heard that before. He'd heard, "Get yourself over here. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you here?" But he'd never heard the highest intent. And from that point, they didn't write it down. They didn't have to. They just started talking about what can be done. And they decided to make Sunday night family dinner night. Nothing was going to interfere with Sunday dinner. It was a priority for everybody. And they shook hands. And for the next couple of weeks, as this man came to my workshop, he would say, "Yep, he was there Sunday, but you know something even more remarkable? He's seeking me out for the first time in a long time. He wants to spend time with me for a change." It literally transformed their entire relationship by getting in touch with what's really the matter, what's really happening inside of you, inside of the child, hearing each other, connecting, and talking together, looking at each other as if you can be a part of the solution. You're not just a problem. You are capable. I believe in you. We can work on this together. Now, sometimes you're going to have a problem, you're going to do the process, and you're not going to have a good result. You're not going to come up with anything that works. That's okay. Some problems are tough. Some problems need time, just like beans need to simmer on the stove a long time. You can plan a follow-up. Let's come back and talk about this after we think about it for a couple of days. Or who else could we engage in this process? Like me going to the teacher, because we couldn't come up with something that would work. So going to the teacher to see if there's something we could work together on that end to make things more helpful. So have faith in the process. The first time I used the process, it didn't go anywhere. But I was being a little manipulative. Part of me was thinking, okay, he's going to practice his guitar. He's going to practice an hour a day. That's my intent. I kind of, even though I knew I shouldn't, that was kind of what it was in my mind. And that makes it fall apart. You really have to be in the mode that this child's capable of coming up with solutions. Has anyone ever tried this type of process before? Yeah? Did it work well for you? Yes?
My oldest, we did write down a contract, though.
Oh, you wrote a contract.
Once we agreed on everything, we had to write it down.
Oh,
Because
sure.
He pulled, the first time we did it, he was like, oh yeah, and then I had too many reminders. I was finding myself then. So when I wrote it on, we put a whiteboard in his room,
Right.
and wrote out what he agreed to.
Right.
And then I said, no, wait a minute, it says that, oh yeah, okay.
And this is a really powerful parenting tool, writing a note. You do the process, you write it down. As a matter of fact, the dad with the toothbrush thing, after they agreed on that dad would brush first and then he would brush, and he would brush up and down on every single tooth, they wrote it and taped it to the mirror in the bathroom. Some kids will have, you could put silly fun notes too, like when the kitchen is clean, Dad won't be mean. Just fun little notes that engage cooperation in a pleasant way. And teenagers like notes because they don't yell at you. Make sure, though, if you use a note, that you don't put negative things in the note. Because whatever you put in writing is amplified. So put positive messages, put what needs to be done, be solution-orientated as you go through your day. Now what I'd like to, and the follow-up meeting. Anybody can do something for a week. Sometimes kids, you sit down and you decide together, okay, homework is going to be done after dinner, but before, you can start anytime after dinner, but not after 8 o'clock, because you know what happens when they start after 8 o'clock? It goes too late. It goes into bedtime, and then you're crabby. So, you set your boundaries together at the meeting, and you say, okay, you've decided you want to work at the kitchen table. Okay, you've decided you want music. That works for me too. Okay, you've decided after dinner, but before 8 o'clock you'll start. So at the very latest, 7:45. Whatever, you of course will come up with your own things. You shake hands, and then you add the follow-up. You say, let's try this for 1 week. Because if you try it, really give it your all for 1 week, and you don't like it, it doesn't work for you, we'll renegotiate. We'll talk about what you feel, how I feel, and see what we can come up that's even better. You're not stuck. It's not this way forever. Because if they think they're stuck in this way forever, they're going to sabotage it. They're going to not go full force into it. But if they came up with a solution, they have a week to try it, and they have the power to change things if it doesn't work for them. Now you've got cooperation. Now you have solving of the problem. What I'd like you to do is get a partner and get into groups of 2. It could be 3 if you want to. But I'm going to give you a few minutes to each. If you can, make it 2, because I want you to each have as much time as possible. They say when you hear something, you learn a certain percentage of what you hear, and then you forget the most of it. But when you share what you've learned with somebody, it expands how much you've learned, or it expands the possibility of retaining it. So I'd like you to consider for a moment, what is your perpetual problem? Choose, not your child, the problem. What child is it? Do you have an issue with it? You would write, maybe that this procedure would help if you used it. Think of what that is, then get your partner, share. I'll give you each like 3 minutes, 4 minutes each, and I'll tell you when to switch. Share, first of all, what the problem is, what your highest intent in your own feelings might be, and help each other with that. If your partner is telling you, well, I really expect that she takes this violin lesson seriously, that she has to be in that room and for this long a time, and she has to be this good and do these many things. If it goes on, tell your partner gently, could you say that more briefly? Be kind, but try to guide each other. Be each other's coaches here to try to get, well, why do you want her to practice? What is it? And you may come up with, I think that you have a natural talent for music, and I really want you to learn to appreciate it, to really enjoy the process of learning, or whatever your thing is. But try to get to the highest intent. So go ahead and get your partners. I'll give you a couple seconds. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand and we'll find you one. I want to share with you something that I thought was so cute. The man who had the son that wouldn't brush his teeth, you know, they made the agreement. They had the little note on the bathroom mirror all the time. He told me, because there was 3 more weeks left of class, and he'd come back every week and he goes, do you know, every single night, that kid comes up to me and says, it's time to brush teeth. You go first, right, Daddy? And he puts his hand out to shake his hand every night. Why do you think he does that? Why did that boy do that? It reinforces the deal. What else?
It makes him feel like he's more of a grown-up. Like
he's important. He's on equal level. He can come up with good solutions.
And it gives him respect and self-confidence that solve this problem.
Right, he solved the problem. And how does Dad feel? How do you suppose, as a parent, you feel when this happens? Oh, that feels good. Does anybody have any comments or questions from your discussion with each other? Yes?
I have just a kind of a serious issue. I've taken some parenting classes that were, trying to go through the steps and giving them choices. You can do it now or you can do it later type of thing.
Right.
My problem is that it's like you can do it before your favorite show or after your favorite show. Show's over. We don't want to do it. That's right.
Right. Yeah, that's a big one.
I have no more bargaining chips because the show's over.
So they're saying, you say, do you want to do your homework before the show or after the show? You decide. So they watch the show, and now it's time to do their chore. Is it a chore or homework? What is it?
It's anything.
Anything, okay.
Anything.
And then they're like, I understand, Mom. Yeah, right, I'll get to it. And then you're mad, and then you go back into your old automatic reaction.
Come on, you said you do that.
So now you're nagging, and you're threatening, and you're back to... I'll give you my suggestion, but does anybody else have a suggestion first? Go ahead.
I would just say the next night, say, okay, yesterday we said before or after, you chose after, that didn't work, so I get to choose tonight.
There you go. Yep.
Then they'll learn that, hey.
So what the focus here is always on, you have choices as long as you follow through on the decisions you make. When you make a choice and then you don't follow through, that means the next time I need to make the choice. They're not going to like that. So that means they have to do it before the show tomorrow. And now, the next day, always give your kids another chance to have a choice. Not that day, but the next day you could say, now it's up to you. This time, would you like to go before the show or after the show? You decide. So they learn that there will be a consequence to their actions. If they don't think there's any consequence to their actions, I can say anything just to get her off my hair for a little longer. And they don't mind our nagging. Sometimes kids have they know us, we're like a 3-time nagger. We'll say, Michael Jeffrey, get over here. Then they don't come. Michael Jeffrey, did you hear me? I said, come over here. You've got to eat your dinner. Come to the table. They don't come. Michael Jeffrey, get over here. They don't come. So now you walk up, and it's not until you're standing right in front of them, Michael Jeffrey, you come right now and you walk, because they know what your typical way of handling things are. So does that answer your question? Would that work for you, do you suppose?
The problem is that, it's a different set of circumstances every time because of,
right.
Soccer schedule, baseball schedule.
And you can combine them in that the last time you had to make a choice, you didn't follow through. So this choice I'm going to make. It doesn't have to necessarily be the same thing, but they get the idea that I'm in control of my life as long as I keep to my word. So the message is there. And so what we find is that we have problems. Life has problems. There's no such thing as a problem-free life. And we wouldn't necessarily even want a problem-free life. Hey, our kids come home with math problems. Would we want to take those away from them? Problems help you in what way? Pardon me? It helps you grow. It helps you achieve. If you have a really big ambition, a big goal, I want to, let's say the child says, I want to be an artist, or I want to be an astronaut, or whatever they want to be. There's going to be a lot of problems along the way. Those problems aren't necessarily bad. They're just things that they have to learn. They have to learn how to come into a situation and solve it. And can you imagine if you use this process with your kids? For us, it's going to feel a little foreign. We're not used to using this type of method. But for our kids, it will be their natural way. And imagine your kids with this method as a natural way of handling problems. Imagine your child having a problem at school with a teacher and using this process. Having a problem at the university and dealing with his team members this way, or his co-workers this way, and someday with his or her spouse this way, and then someday with children of their own. Absolutely, way to go. So when we see the problems, look for solutions. See it as an opportunity for you as a parent to grow. And then reap the rewards when things do go right. We don't tend to acknowledge the things that go right. We're so busy noticing everything that's going wrong. Stop for a moment and think, what's going right in my life? What do I really like about what's going on? What do I admire about my child right now? There are problems, sure, but what's going well? Celebrate that. I want to thank you all for coming today. Enjoy the rest of your talk.
You've been listening to Problem Solving Strategies for Parents by Marilyn Suttle.